The council chamber stretched across 300 meters of polished crystal floor. 47 different species filled the seats, their forms ranging from insectoid to gaseous clouds, contained in specialized suits. At the center stood Commander Hana, wearing nothing but a simple gray uniform with Earth's blue and green patch on her shoulder. She looked tiny compared to the massive aliens surrounding her. Hana had traveled 8 months to reach this place. Veloria Prime, the capital of galactic civilization. The city outside the chamber gleamed with towers that touched the clouds, vehicles that floated without sound, and technology that made Earth look like children playing with rocks. But Hana kept her face calm. She had a job to do. The Velorian Chancellor sat on the highest platform. His body looked like living crystal, refracting light into rainbow patterns across the walls. He gestured with one long finger, and Hana's presentation began. Holographic images of Earth appeared above her head. Cities, oceans, mountains. Then came humanity's achievements. "We have developed faster-than-light travel independently," Hana said. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "We have established 7 colony worlds beyond our solar system. We have maintained peace among our nations for 3 generations. We come seeking membership in the Galactic Council and offering friendship." A clicking sound echoed from the left side of the chamber. The Arctanian representative, a creature that looked like a praying mantis the size of a truck, was making the noise. Hana had studied enough to know it meant laughter. Soon, other species joined in their own ways, chirping, flashing lights, subsonic vibrations that made her teeth ache. The Chancellor held up his hand. The laughter stopped. "Commander Hana of Earth, your presentation is noted. However, we must inform you that humanity does not meet the requirements for Council membership. Your species is too young, too violent. Your history shows 7,000 years of continuous warfare. You have only just stopped fighting among yourselves." Hana's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. "With respect, Chancellor, every species here has a violent past. The Valorians fought the Crystalline Wars for 2,000 years. The Arctanians exterminated 3 other species on their homeworld before developing space travel. We acknowledge our history, but we have learned from it. Learning and proving are different things," another delegate said. This one was a floating jellyfish-like creature in a water tank. "You must demonstrate peaceful intentions over at least 500 years of galactic presence before we can consider your application." Hana took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been dreading. "I understand your position. However, I must inform you that humanity has already established colonies on 14 worlds, not 7. We have mining operations in 32 systems. We have treaties with 6 independent species that exist outside Council jurisdiction. We are here as a courtesy, not as supplicants." The chamber went silent. Not the respectful silence of consideration, but the shocked silence of disbelief. Then the Chancellor spoke, and his voice had turned cold. "You admit to violating expansion protocols? To establishing unauthorized colonies? To making treaties without Council approval?" "We violated nothing," Hana replied. "Earth is not a Council member. We are not bound by Council law. We came here today to change that through peaceful means. To join your organization as equals." The Arctanian representative clicked loudly. "Equals? You dare call yourselves equal to civilizations that mastered the stars when your ancestors lived in caves?" Hana turned to face the creature. "Yes, we dare. Because we have something you seem to have forgotten. The willingness to fight for what is ours." The Chancellor stood. His crystal body flared with angry red light. "This is exactly why humanity is unfit for membership. You threaten war in a chamber of peace. You demonstrate the violence we predicted." "I threaten nothing," Hana said quietly. "I warn, there is a difference. Earth wishes to join this council peacefully. We offer our technology, our resources, our culture. But if you deny us, and then attempt to restrict our expansion or threaten our colonies, we will defend ourselves. Is that so? The jellyfish delegate pulsed with what might have been amusement. And how do you imagine your 7 ships will stand against our enforcement fleets? Hana smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We have more than 7 ships. We have been preparing for this conversation for 20 years. We hoped for friends. We planned for enemies. If you force us to demonstrate our military capabilities, you will regret it. This is not a threat. It is a fact. The Chancellor's light turned from red to purple. You come to our chamber, to the heart of galactic civilization, and you issue ultimatums? This is unacceptable. The Council will now vote on humanity's status. The vote took less than 5 minutes. 47 delegates, 47 rejections. Not a single voice spoke in Earth's favor. Then came the decree. The Chancellor read it himself, his voice booming through the chamber. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council. Furthermore, humanity is ordered to abandon all colony worlds beyond your solar system within 1 Earth year. You will restrict your activities to your home system and accept Council monitoring of your development. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action. This is not negotiable. Hannah stood very still. She had expected rejection. She had not expected this level of arrogance. They were not just denying Earth membership. They were trying to cage humanity like animals in a zoo. I see, she said softly. Then I have one final statement to make. The Chancellor waved dismissively. Speak, then depart. We have more important matters to attend to. Hana looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. Some delegates were already turning away, already forgetting about the primitive humans who had dared to ask for equality. My government sent me here with 2 sets of instructions. The first was to negotiate peaceful membership. I have attempted that and failed. The second set of instructions was to deliver a formal declaration in case of rejection and threats. She pulled a data chip from her pocket and held it up. This chip contains a complete record of this meeting. It will be transmitted to every independent species in the galaxy, to every news network, to every corner of space that can receive it. We care not what you transmit, the Arctanian clicked. None will care about Earth's complaints. Perhaps, Hannah agreed. But they will care about what comes after. You have 1 year to reconsider your position. You have 1 year to realize that your laughter today will turn to silence tomorrow. You have 1 year to understand that humanity does not make empty threats. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the chamber, each one measured and deliberate. As she reached the doorway, she turned back one last time. We came in peace. We warned you in honesty. What happens next is your choice, not ours. But know this, when the Galactic Council falls, when your enforcement fleets burn, when you beg for mercy that you denied to others, remember this moment. Remember that you could have had humanity as friends. Instead, you chose to make us your enemies. The chamber erupted in laughter again. But Hana was already gone, walking toward her ship with her head held high. As soon as she was aboard, she sent the encrypted message to Earth. 3 words that would change everything. Protocol Omega activated. Behind her, in the council chamber, the laughter continued. They had no idea that they had just signed their own death warrant. They had no idea that the small human woman in the gray uniform had just given them the only warning they would ever receive. They had no idea that in 1 year's time they would remember this day as the moment their empire began to fall. They laughed because they did not know humanity. They laughed because they believed themselves superior. They laughed because they had forgotten the most important rule of survival in a hostile universe. Never underestimate the species that warns you before it strikes. because that means they are giving you a chance they do not have to give. And when that chance expires, no mercy will follow. 6 months had passed since Commander Hannah left. Valoria Prime, the Galactic Council, had received Earth's response to their ultimatum through official channels. 3 words: come and take them. Now, 200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new Bizan system. The planet below was humanity's largest colony, home to 12 million people who had left Earth seeking new opportunities among the stars. Cities dotted 3 continents. Orbital stations processed raw materials from the asteroid belt. Children were being born who had never seen Earth's blue sky. Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of the battleship Tae-Gugshi, watching the enemy fleet arrange itself into attack formation. He was 53 years old, with gray hair cut military short and hands that had not stopped shaking since the war warning came through. Around him, his bridge crew worked in tense silence. Everyone knew what was coming. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Fleet," Lieutenant Borum said from the communication station. "It's the same ultimatum. Evacuate within 12 hours or face forcible removal." Deho looked at the tactical display. 37 human ships against 200 alien vessels. The enemy had dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers with weapons that could crack planets. Humanity had retrofitted cargo ships, mining vessels with welded-on armor plates, and exactly 9 purpose-built warships. On paper, this was not a battle. It was an execution. "Open a channel," Deho ordered. "All frequencies. I want everyone in this system to hear this." The young lieutenant's fingers danced across her console. "Channel open, sir." Deho took a breath and spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Deho of the Terran Defense Fleet. To the Galactic Enforcement Fleet, we have received your ultimatum and we reject it. New Bizan is home to 12 million human citizens. We will not abandon them. We will not surrender our world. You want this planet? Come and take it. But know that every meter of space, every second of time, will cost you blood and steel." He paused, then added the line that would become legendary. "We don't evacuate. We multiply." The response came 30 seconds later. A Valorian voice, dripping with contempt. "So be it. You have chosen extinction. We will give you a warrior's death, since you seem to value such primitive things. All ships," Deho broadcast to his fleet, "engage Protocol Talon. Make them remember why humans are still alive after 4 billion years of trying to kill us. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies for generations." The human fleet did not maintain formation. They did not exchange long-range fire in the traditional manner of galactic warfare. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the enemy at maximum thrust. Captain Mina commanded the frigate Indomitable, a ship barely 1/10 the size of the enemy dreadnoughts bearing down on her. Her crew was young, most of them barely out of training, but they had volunteered for this. They knew what was coming. "Engineering, how long until we hit critical?" she asked. 4 minutes at current reactor output, the chief engineer replied. 5 minutes until we turn into a small sun." Mina watched her tactical screen. The Valorian dreadnought was 300 kilometers ahead and closing. Its weapons were charging, preparing to swat her ship like an insect. That was fine. She only needed to get closer. "All hands, this is the captain. Abandon ship in 60 seconds. Head for the emergency pods. It has been an honor serving with you." She heard no complaints. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it was one way. As the crew rushed to the escape pods, Mina locked the controls and aimed her ship directly at the dreadnought's center mass. She could bail out too, but someone needed to make sure the ship stayed on course. That was a captain's duty. The reactor went critical, exactly when engineering predicted. The explosion propelled the Indomitable forward at impossible velocity. The Valorian dreadnought tried to evade, but capital ships were not built for quick maneuvers. Mina's frigate hit the alien vessel amidships and tore it in half. The blast lit up every sensor in the system. When the light faded, debris from both ships scattered across 100,000 kilometers. But among that debris, 43 human escape pods transmitted emergency signals. Captain Nines was one of them. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships rammed alien vessels at suicide speeds. Mining ships filled with explosives detonated next to enemy cruisers. Fighters swarmed like angry hornets, targeting engine sections and weapon ports with kinetic rounds that tore through. Shields designed to stop energy weapons. Lieutenant Ji-Wan flew his fighter through the debris field of what had been a human cargo hauler. The alien fleet had destroyed it easily, but they had not expected what came next. Ji-Wan and his squadron had been hiding in the wreckage, waiting for enemy ships to pass by. "All wings, execute scavenger protocol," he transmitted. "Hit them from behind and vanish before they can track us." 12 human fighters erupted from the debris like ghosts. They fired missiles at point-blank range into the engines of 3 alien destroyers, then disappeared back into the wreckage before the enemy could respond. The destroyers spun out of control, their propulsion systems failing. This was not how galactic warfare worked. There were rules, formations, honor. The humans ignored all of it. They fought like cornered animals, using every trick and tactic that thousands of years of human-against-human warfare had developed. They used nuclear weapons, which the galaxy considered barbaric and outdated. They used kinetic kill vehicles traveling at relativistic speeds, weapons so simple and so devastating that advanced civilizations had forgotten about them. Admiral Deho coordinated the chaos from his flagship. He had no illusions about winning in the traditional sense. His goal was simple: make the cost so high that the Galactic Council would think twice about attacking another human world. "Sir, enemy fleet is breaking formation," Borum reported. "They're retreating to regroup." Deho allowed himself a small smile. "How many ships have they lost?" 74 confirmed destroyed. Another 43 damaged and pulling back. "Sir, we've killed or disabled more than half their fleet." "And our losses?" The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew the answer. 29 ships destroyed. 4 more too damaged to continue fighting. Estimated casualties: 4,300. Deho closed his eyes briefly. 4,000 people. 4,000 mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. All dead in 3 hours of combat. But New Bizon still stood. 12 million people still breathed. Sometimes that was the only victory available. "Broadcast to all surviving ships," he ordered. "Well done. Prepare for the second wave. They will come back." But the second wave did not come. Not that day. The Galactic Enforcement Fleet regrouped at the edge of the system, and for 72 hours they held position. The humans used the time to repair what they could, to recover survivors from the debris, to mourn their dead. On the third day, the alien fleet retreated completely. They jumped to faster than light and vanished, leaving behind wreckage and confusion. The mighty Galactic Enforcement Fleet, which had never lost a battle in recorded history, had been driven off by a ragtag collection of human ships that should not have stood a chance. Admiral Deho stood in the observation deck of New Bizon's main orbital station, looking down at the planet below. Smoke still rose from cities that had been hit by stray weapons fire. Memorial services were being planned for the fallen. But the planet was free. The people were safe. Lieutenant Ji-Wan joined him at the window. The young pilot had somehow survived, despite flying 43 combat sorties in 3 days. His fighter had run out of missiles, then ammunition, then fuel. He had glided back to the station on emergency thrusters. "Sir, we won," Jiwan said quietly. "We actually won." Daeho shook his head. "No, Lieutenant. We survived. There is a difference. But survival is the first step. Now comes the hard part." "What's that, sir?" "Making sure they never want to come back." News of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light communication. The Galactic Council tried to suppress it, but independent news networks picked up the story. Humanity, a primitive species that had been laughed at and dismissed, had defeated an enforcement fleet 10 times their size out in council chambers across civilized space. The laughter stopped. Questions began. If humanity could do this while defending, what could they do while attacking? If they fought this hard for one colony, how hard would they fight for Earth itself? The council convened in emergency session. Some delegates called for overwhelming force, for assembling a fleet so large that humanity could not possibly resist. Others urged caution, suggested negotiation. The arguments raged for days. None of them realized that while they argued, Earth had already made its decision. The defense of New Bizan had never been about saving one colony. It had been a message, a demonstration, a promise of what was to come. 3 days after the battle, every council delegate received the same transmission. It showed Fleet Admiral Hyan, Earth's supreme military commander. She did not look pleased. She did not look angry. She looked determined. "You attacked our people," she said simply. "You thought we would run. You were wrong. Now you will learn what happens when you threaten humanity. We are coming. Not to your colonies. Not to your outposts. We are coming to Valoria Prime itself. You started this war. We will finish it." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, military forces began to mobilize. Alliances shifted. Species that had remained neutral suddenly found themselves choosing sides. The war that the Galactic Council thought would be a brief police action had become something far more dangerous. It had become a war for survival. And humanity had just proven they were very good at surviving. Fleet. Admiral Hyan looked at the holographic star map floating above the conference table. Red marks indicated Galactic Council territory. Blue marks showed human-controlled systems. Yellow marks represented neutral zones and independent species. The map was mostly red. For now, she was in the command center buried 3 kilometers below Earth's surface. Around the table sat the leaders of humanity's military forces, political representatives from the colony worlds, and intelligence officers who had been planning for this moment for 2 decades. New Bizan was the test, Hyan said quietly. We showed them we can defend. Now we show them we can attack. The question is not whether we can win. The question is how we win in a way that creates lasting peace afterward. General Tai Yang, commander of the 5th Fleet, leaned forward. "Admiral, with respect, they tried to exterminate one of our colonies. Why are we worried about peace?" "Because we are not them," Hyan replied. "We fight to protect, not to conquer. We fight to earn respect, not to inspire fear. If we become the monsters they think we are, then even in victory, we lose." She touched a control, and the map zoomed in on a string of systems connecting human territory to Valorian space. These are their supply routes. Every council fleet depends on these lanes for fuel, ammunition, replacement parts. "Captain Tai Yang, I'm giving you the 5th Expeditionary Fleet. Your mission is to make these supply lines disappear." Tai Yang studied the map. "Hit and run tactics?" "Exactly. You jump in, strike hard, and vanish before they can respond. I want their fleet commanders afraid to sleep. I want their supplies burning. I want them to realize they cannot maintain a war this far from their core systems." She paused. "But Captain, These routes also carry civilian traffic, merchant ships, refugee transports. You will not harm civilians. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Admiral. Over the next 6 months, Captain Taiyang's name became a curse word in Valorian military communications. His fleet struck supply depots, destroyed fuel refineries, and captured ammunition shipments. But they did it with a precision that frustrated the enemy. No civilian casualties. No planetary bombardments. No war crimes. The Fifth Fleet developed what became known as the Phantom Protocol. They would drop out of faster-than-light travel at unexpected locations, strike with overwhelming firepower, and jump away before reinforcements arrived. Traditional galactic warfare relied on predictable patterns, on fleets that moved slowly and fought in set-piece battles. Humanity threw out the rulebook. Engineer Sora served aboard the carrier Soul's Fury, one of Taiyang's capital ships. She was 26 years old and had been obsessed with alien technology since childhood. When the war started, she volunteered immediately. Not to fight, but to learn. "Captain, I think I've figured it out," she said excitedly, bursting into the fleet commander's ready room. She carried a datapad covered in equations and diagrams. Taiyang looked up from his own reports. "Figured what out, engineer?" "Why we're faster than them. Why our jump drives recharge quicker." She pulled up a holographic display. "Look, Valorian FTL technology is more advanced than ours in raw power. They can jump farther in a single hop, but they rely entirely on exotic matter generation, which takes time to build up between jumps. And we do it differently?" "Yes, sir. Human drives are hybrid systems. We use a combination of exotic matter and quantum field manipulation. It's less elegant, more brute force, but it means we can make shorter jumps and recharge in 1/10 the time. We can jump, strike, and jump again before they even finish their first recharge cycle." Taiyang smiled. "Can you make our drives even faster?" Sora's eyes lit up. "Give me 3 weeks and access to the captured Arctanian drive cores from New Bizan. I think I can cut our recharge time in half." She delivered in 2 weeks. The result was a jump drive that broke every rule of elegant engineering, but worked perfectly. Human ships began jumping in and out of combat so rapidly that enemy targeting systems could not keep track. The Phantom Protocol became even more deadly. While Taiyang's fleet ravaged supply lines, other human forces struck at military targets. Admiral Quan, commanding the Third Fleet, surrounded the Arctanian fortress world of Arctis IV. This was the homeworld of the species whose representative had laughed loudest at Earth's warning. Quan's fleet consisted of 80 ships. Arctis IV was defended by 200 vessels and orbital defense platforms that had repelled attacks for 3 centuries. On paper, it was an impossible target. Quan did not care about paper. He broadcast a message on all frequencies. "Defenders of Arctis IV, this is Admiral Quan of Earth's Third Fleet. You have 1 hour to surrender. Power down your weapons and recall your fleets. We will occupy your orbital platforms, but we will not harm your planet. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why humanity does not make idle threats." The Arctanian response came quickly. "Foolish humans, you cannot breach our defenses. We have stood against greater threats than you. We will." Quan cut the transmission. "I gave them a chance." Commander Jisoo, execute Operation Sledgehammer. What followed became a textbook example of human military innovation. The Third Fleet did not try to breach the defenses conventionally. Instead, they deployed kinetic kill vehicles, massive chunks of dense metal accelerated to relativistic speeds. The projectiles had no engines, no guidance systems, nothing to detect or intercept. They were just very heavy objects moving very fast. The orbital platforms, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, had no defense against 100-ton bullets traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Each impact released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. Within 30 minutes, every orbital platform was destroyed or disabled. The Arctanian fleet tried to engage, but human ships had already jumped away. Then they jumped back from different vectors, fired another volley of kinetic weapons, and vanished again. The enemy fleet spun in circles, trying to track targets that refused to stay still. After 6 hours, the Arctanian commander surrendered. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. Not a single civilian on Arctis IV had been harmed. But the mighty fortress world had fallen in less than a day. Quan broadcast his message to the planet. People of Arctis IV, Earth has no quarrel with you. Your leaders chose war. Your military threatened our families. But we will not punish you for their decisions. We will occupy your orbital space until this war ends. Then you will be free to choose your own path. We offer you the same choice we offered the Galactic Council: peace or continued resistance. Choose wisely. News of Arctis IV's fall spread rapidly. If humanity could take a fortress world this easily, what other targets were vulnerable? Species that had supported the Council began to reconsider their positions. Some sent quiet diplomatic messages to Earth, asking about neutrality. Others went further, offering intelligence about Council military movements. The war was no longer humanity versus the galaxy. It was becoming humanity versus the Galactic Council, with everyone else trying to decide which side would win. In the council chambers on Valoria Prime, panic was setting in. The Chancellor called emergency sessions daily. Delegates who had laughed at Commander Hana's warnings now demanded answers. How had this happened? How had a primitive species brought the galactic order to its knees in 6 months? We underestimated them, the military coordinator admitted. We thought superior technology guaranteed victory. We were wrong. Human technology is inferior, but their tactics, their willingness to adapt, their refusal to fight by established rules. We have no counter for this. Then we must adapt as they have, the Chancellor insisted. Learn from their tactics. Use their methods against them. But that was easier said than done. Galactic military doctrine had evolved over thousands of years. Admirals and generals had trained their entire lives in established methods. Asking them to throw away everything they knew and fight like humans was like asking fish to breathe air. Meanwhile, humanity continued to press their advantage. Small species that the Council had oppressed for generations suddenly found Earth offering protection. Independent colonies received human technology and military support. Every species that had suffered under Council hegemony saw an opportunity for freedom. Fleet. Admiral Hyan coordinated everything from Earth. She slept 4 hours a night and worked the rest. Her staff begged her to delegate more, to trust her subordinates. She refused. Every decision, every target, every operation went through her personally. She would not risk innocent lives because of poor planning. Admiral, we're receiving requests from 14 different species asking for Earth's protection. Her chief of staff reported. They want to join our alliance against the Council. What are they offering in return? Hyan asked. Intelligence, mostly. Fleet movements, supply caches, defense layouts. Some are offering bases in their territory. All of them want guarantees that we won't become the new Council, won't rule over them like the Valorians did. Hyan nodded slowly. Draft a treaty. Standard terms. Mutual defense, technology sharing, but complete political independence. We are not building an empire. We are building an alliance of equals. Make that absolutely clear. The Commonwealth Treaty was signed 3 weeks later. 23 species joined immediately, with more negotiations ongoing. The balance of power was shifting dramatically. The Council was losing allies faster than they could replace them. But Hyan knew this was not enough. As long as the Galactic Council existed in its current form, as long as the Valorians believed they could maintain control through military force, the war would continue. There was only one way to end it permanently. She looked at her senior staff. Begin planning for Operation Final Warning. We are going to Valoria Prime, and this time we are not asking for permission to join their council. We are going to show them why they should be asking to join ours. The staff exchanged glances. Attacking the enemy capital was the most dangerous operation possible. It would require committing the majority of Earth's fleet to a single battle. If they lost, humanity would be vulnerable to counterattack. Admiral, General Taiyang said carefully, "Are we ready for this?" Haiyan smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. They laughed at our warning. They attacked our colony. They thought we would surrender or die. We survived. We adapted. We won every engagement. Now we teach them the final lesson. Never mistake patience for weakness. Never laugh at those who warn you before they strike. And never, ever underestimate humanity. She stood and faced the star map. Valoria Prime glowed red at its center, the heart of galactic civilization. Soon it would burn with a different kind of light, the light of human determination. "Send word to all fleets," she ordered. "Converge on staging area Zeta. In 1 month, we end this war. On our terms." Valoria Prime glittered like a jewel in the darkness of space. The planet had stood as the capital of galactic civilization for 12,000 years. Crystal towers reached into the sky. Billions of beings from hundreds of species called it home. And around it, the largest military fleet in recorded history weighted .800 warships formed concentric rings around the planet. Orbital defense platforms, each the size of a small moon, bristled with weapons that could vaporize asteroids. Fighter craft patrolled the outer edges in swarms of thousands. Every sensor array pointed outward, watching for the human fleet they knew was coming. The Galactic Council had emptied their reserves for this. Ships from every loyal species, weapons platforms built over centuries, admirals with hundreds of years of experience. They had learned from their defeats. They had adapted their tactics. And they had overwhelming numerical superiority. The council met in emergency session in their crystal chamber. The chancellor's body flickered with nervous energy, refracting light in unstable patterns. "This is where humanity's advance ends," he declared. "Let them come. Let them break themselves against our defenses. Let them learn that there are limits even to their audacity." The Arctanian military coordinator clicked his agreement. "Our intelligence confirms they are bringing approximately 300 ships. Even with their unconventional tactics, they cannot overcome these odds. Valoria Prime will be their grave." What they did not know was that 300 human ships was exactly what Earth wanted them to see. The real number was different. Much different. Fleet Admiral Haiyan stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable II, named for Captain Mina's ship that had fallen at New Bizaun. Mina herself now commanded a cruiser squadron 3 ships to port. She had survived, and Earth did not waste survivors. They learned from them. Around the Indomitable II, 300 human warships hung in space. Behind them, hidden in a nearby nebula and masked by electromagnetic interference, another 200 ships waited. And scattered across a dozen nearby systems, rapid response teams stood ready to jump in if needed, but Haiyan did not plan to need them. This battle would not be won by numbers. It would be won by something the Galactic Council had in abundance, but did not know how to use properly: information. "Dr. Yunji, status report," Haiyan ordered. The physicist appeared on a secondary screen. She looked exhausted, but excited. Behind her, banks of computers processed data at incredible speeds. "The Cascade drive is ready, Admiral. We have analyzed 3 years of captured Valorian shield data. Their technology is beautiful, elegant, and completely rigid. They have not updated their shield algorithms in 400 years because they work perfectly. That perfection is their weakness. Explain it simply, Doctor. The fleet needs to understand what they are about to deploy. Yunji nodded. Valorian shields work by creating a quantum resonance field. Every shield generator in their fleet is synchronized to the same base frequency for maximum efficiency. The cascade drive exploits this. When activated, it sends a carefully tuned pulse through their shield network. The shields do not fail. They invert, meaning their own shields tear their ships apart from the inside. The effect cascades through their entire fleet because they are all linked. The more ships they have, the more devastating the weapon becomes. Their strength becomes their weakness. Hyen allowed herself a small smile. How long to deploy once we are in range? 30 seconds. But Admiral, we only get one shot. Once they see what it does, they will shut down their shield network. After that, we fight conventionally. Understood. One shot is all we need. Hyen turned to her fleet commanders. All ships execute approach pattern Delta. Make it look like a standard assault. Let them think they know what is coming. The human fleet advanced in formation. To the Valorian sensors, it looked textbook. 3 battle groups, proper spacing, coordinated approach vectors. Exactly what military doctrine predicted. The defenders prepared to meet them with overwhelming firepower. Captain Jun commanded a squadron of destroyers on the fleet's left flank. His ships were small, fast, and carried the cascade weapon components. His mission was simple: get close enough to deploy, survive long enough to activate, and get out before the enemy could respond. Sir, enemy fleet is moving to intercept, his tactical officer reported. 200 ships breaking formation to engage us. Perfect, Jun replied. They think we are the main attack. Let them commit. He opened a channel to his squadron. All ships, remember your training. Speed is life. Once we deploy the package, burn for the rally point. Leave nothing behind they can analyze. The Valorian fleet opened fire at extreme range. Energy beams crossed the void, brilliant colors painting death across the darkness. Human ships scattered, their smaller size and superior maneuverability allowing them to dodge the initial volley. Return fire came in the form of missiles and kinetic rounds, keeping the enemy focused on the immediate threat. While the fleets engaged, Jun's destroyers accelerated to maximum velocity. They dove under the main battle, skimming dangerously close to Valoria Prime's gravity well. Planetary defense platforms fired at them, but human point defense systems intercepted most of the incoming fire. Approaching deployment range, the navigation officer announced. 10 seconds. Jun gripped his command chair. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had drilled this maneuver 1,000 times. Now it was real. Deploy cascade drive. Activate on my mark. The destroyers released small devices, barely larger than escape pods. They drifted through space, powered down and invisible to most sensors. The Valorian fleet ignored them, focusing on the human ships that were already retreating. All devices deployed, sir. Activation sequence ready. Jun watched his tactical display. 800 enemy ships, all with shields at maximum strength, all synchronized to the same frequency. In 30 seconds, that strength would kill them. Activate cascade drive. All ships, emergency jump on my mark. The devices powered up simultaneously. They emitted a pulse of energy that looked harmless on sensors. Just a minor electromagnetic fluctuation. The Valorian defense grid registered it and dismissed it as background interference. Then the shields began to fail. But fail was the wrong word. They inverted, turning their protective energy against the ships they were supposed to protect. Metal screamed as shield fields tore through halls from the inside. Reactors overloaded as feedback surged through power systems. Ships that had stood for centuries against external threats died in seconds from internal destruction. The effect cascaded exactly as Dr. Yunji predicted. Each failing shield destabilized the next, creating a chain reaction across the entire fleet. In 90 seconds, 600 warships became expanding clouds of debris. The Galactic Council watched from their chamber in horror. Their invincible fleet, their last defense, was destroying itself. And they did not even understand how Admiral Hyon broadcast a message on all frequencies. Defenders of Veloria Prime, this is Fleet Admiral Hyon of Earth. Your fleet is defeated. Your orbital platforms are vulnerable. But I am not here to destroy your world. I am here to end this war. She paused, letting her words sink in. Power down your remaining weapons. Recall your surviving ships. I will not fire on vessels that surrender. I will not harm civilians. I will not become the monster you thought humanity was. But I will not accept anything less than complete capitulation. You have 1 hour to decide. In the council chamber, panic erupted. Some delegates demanded continued resistance. Others called for immediate surrender. The Arctanian representative, whose homeworld had already fallen, simply clicked in resignation. The Chancellor looked at the tactical displays. 200 human ships remained untouched. His fleet was reduced to scattered survivors. The orbital platforms could still fight, but against an enemy that had just demonstrated technology beyond galactic understanding, what chance did they have? We must evacuate, someone suggested. Leave Veloria Prime, regroup elsewhere, and abandon our capital? Our people? The Chancellor's crystal body flickered with conflicting emotions. We brought this on ourselves. We laughed at their warning. We thought ourselves superior. We were fools. He stood, his decision made. Open a channel to the human fleet. Hyon received the transmission personally. The Chancellor's hologram appeared before her, and for the first time, she saw genuine humility in an alien leader. Fleet Admiral Hyon, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we surrender. We ask for terms. Terms? Hyon replied. Here are your terms. The Galactic Council is dissolved effective immediately. Every species under your rule becomes independent. You will dismantle your military to a level sufficient only for self-defense. You will open your technology archives to all species, not just the privileged few. And you will allow free elections on all Council worlds, including Veloria Prime. The Chancellor's light dimmed. You ask us to dismantle everything we have built over 12 millennia. No, Hyon corrected. I ask you to rebuild it correctly. You built an empire based on the threat of force. You maintained power through military superiority. You laughed at those who sought equality. That ends today. You can rebuild as equals among the galactic community, or you can refuse and discover what total war with humanity truly means. She leaned forward. I do not want to destroy Veloria Prime. I do not want to kill billions of civilians. I want to create a galaxy where what you did to us can never happen again, where emerging species are welcomed, not threatened, where strength is measured by what we build together, not by how many ships we have. The Chancellor was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded, a gesture he had learned from studying humans. We accept your terms. The war is over. But it was not quite over. Below, on Veloria Prime, the military leadership refused to accept surrender. They had not spent centuries building their power to give it up without a fight. A faction of hardliners seized control of the planetary defense grid and prepared to fire on the human fleet. Captain Mina, commanding her cruiser squadron, detected the activation of ground-based weapons. Admiral, We have hostile targeting from the surface. Multiple sites charging heavy particle cannons. Hyan's expression hardened. She had offered peace. She had shown mercy. And now extremists were going to force her hand. Captain Mina, you have authorization to neutralize surface threats. Precision strikes only. No civilian casualties. Show them we can destroy military targets without harming innocents. Mina's squadron went to work with surgical precision. Kinetic strikes from orbit hit weapons platforms with accuracy measured in centimeters. Power stations that fed the defense grid went offline. Command bunkers were sealed by carefully placed explosives. Within 30 minutes, the planetary rebellion was over. Not a single civilian died. Not one residential area was touched. But the military installations that had threatened human ships were reduced to rubble. The message was clear. Earth could destroy armies without harming people. They had the technology, the skill, and the will to fight wars without committing atrocities. This was not the primitive species the Council had expected. This was something far more dangerous. A civilization that combined advanced military capability with genuine moral restraint. As the sun rose over Valoria Prime's capital city, citizens emerged to find human ships in orbit, but their streets untouched. The war was over. Their leaders had surrendered. And somehow, impossibly, they were still alive. In the council chamber, now occupied by human marines, Admiral Hyan met with the former council members face to face. She did not gloat. She did not threaten. She simply stated facts. You had everything, she said quietly. Technology, resources, time. You could have been remembered as the founders of a true galactic civilization. Instead, you will be remembered as the empire that fell because they forgot the most important rule. Power without wisdom is just tyranny waiting to collapse. She stood and looked around the chamber. This building will remain. It will serve as the headquarters of the new Commonwealth. But it will be different. Every species will have an equal voice. No one will dominate. No one will be dismissed. And if you agree to these terms, Valoria can be part of it. Not as rulers, but as partners. The Chancellor bowed his head. We agree. And with those two words, the war ended. Not with the destruction Hyan had feared. Not with the genocide the Council had contemplated. But with surrender, reform, and the promise of something better. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Valoria Prime. The old council chamber had been redesigned according to human principles. No more elevated platforms. No hierarchy of seating. Every representative sat at the same level, in a circle that allowed everyone to see everyone else. The crystal walls remained, but now they displayed not the glory of the Valorian Empire, but images of all member species working together. Ambassador Hana stood at the center of the circle, just as she had 2 years before. But everything else was different. Then she had been a supplicant asking for acceptance. Now she was Chancellor of the Terran Commonwealth, elected by 47 different species who had learned to trust humanity not through words, but through actions. The Commonwealth recognizes the delegate from Arctis, she said. Formally, the Arctanian representative stood. He was not the same one who had laughed at Earth's warning. That delegate had retired in shame after his homeworld fell. This new representative was younger, humble, and had spent 6 months studying on Earth before taking his position. Chancellor, honored delegates, I bring news from Arctis IV. Our reconstruction is complete. With Earth's assistance, we have rebuilt our orbital infrastructure and established new industries based on shared Commonwealth technology. Our economy has grown by 40%. Our people are free to choose their government for the first time in our history. We have much to be grateful for. Murmurs of approval circulated through the chamber. Hannah nodded. The Commonwealth is pleased by your progress. Does any delegate have questions? A Valorian representative stood. This was unusual enough to draw attention. Valorians had been quiet in Commonwealth sessions, still ashamed of their former arrogance. This delegate was named Nari, a former military officer who had been among the first to recognize that humanity's warnings were not bluffs. Chancellor, I have a question for the Arctanian delegate. Your people suffered under council rule. Earth defeated your defenses in a single day. Yet you speak of gratitude. How did humanity earn this? What did they do differently? The Arctanian clicked thoughtfully. They could have destroyed our world. Their admiral had the power. Instead, he offered us a choice: freedom or continued resistance. When we chose freedom, they helped us rebuild. They shared technology without demanding payment. They protected our sovereignty without demanding control. They treated us as equals, not as subjects. This is why we are grateful. Nari sat down slowly. Around the chamber, other former council species watched with similar expressions. They were learning what humanity had tried to teach them 2 years ago. Power was not about control. It was about responsibility. The session continued with routine business. Trade agreements. Technological exchange programs. Dispute mediation between member species. The Commonwealth was growing, not through conquest, but through voluntary membership. Every month, another species applied to join. Every month, humanity welcomed them with open arms and open databases. After the session ended, Hannah walked through the reconstructed city outside the chamber. Veloria Prime had changed dramatically. The crystal towers remained, but now they housed embassies from 100 different species. Markets sold goods from across the galaxy. Children of different species played together in parks that had once been restricted to Valerian nobility only. She found Admiral Hyan sitting at an outdoor cafe, drinking what humans called coffee and aliens called various unpronounceable names. The Admiral had retired from active military service after the war, but maintained her position as Commonwealth Defense Coordinator. Some habits did not change easily. You look tired, Hyan observed as Hannah sat down. Democracy is exhausting, Hannah replied with a smile. Military dictatorship is much more efficient. You just give orders, and people obey. And then someone gives you an order you disagree with, and you remember why democracy exists. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city move around them. A Valorian child approached their table shyly, holding a datapad. Excuse me, Chancellor Hannah? Could you sign this? I am writing a report on the war for school. Hannah took the pad. What is your report about? About how humans warned us, and we did not listen. About how we could have had friends, but chose to make enemies. My teacher says we must study this, so we never make the same mistake again. Your teacher is wise. Hannah signed the pad and handed it back. What do you think? Should Veloria have listened to Earth's warning? The child's crystalline body flickered with what might have been embarrassment. Yes, my grandfather was on the council. He voted to reject Earth's membership. He says it was the worst decision he ever made. He says he was arrogant and foolish and deserved to lose his position. Is he angry about that? No. He says losing his position saved his soul. He volunteers now at the refugee center, helping species that the old council oppressed. He says he is happier than he ever was when he had power. After the child left, Hyan chuckled softly. That is the real victory. Not the military defeat. The cultural change. They are teaching their children to value wisdom over power. Some of them are, Hannah corrected. Others are still bitter. There are groups on 12 worlds calling for restoration of the old order. They say humans humiliated the galaxy and must be resisted. How large are these groups? Small, loud but small. Most species are too busy enjoying their freedom to want the council back. They finished their drinks and walked through the city together. Their path took them past the Commonwealth Defense Academy, where the next generation of officers from 40 different species trained together. The building was new, constructed with contributions from every member world. Inside, Admiral Dio was teaching a class on military strategy. He had aged noticeably since the defense of New Bizan, his gray hair now completely white, but his eyes remained sharp. Around him, students from a dozen different species listened intently. The question is not whether you can defeat an enemy, Dao said. The question is whether you should. Every battle you win creates consequences. Every enemy you make must eventually be dealt with. The goal of good strategy is not victory. It is creating conditions where future victory is unnecessary. A young Valorian student raised her hand. Admiral, humans won every major battle of the war. Yet you say, victory is not the goal. This seems contradictory. Dao smiled. We won battles because we had to, because the Council gave us no choice. But our goal was never to defeat Valoria. Our goal was to create a galaxy where species like Earth could exist without being threatened. Could we have achieved that goal by exterminating our enemies? No, the student admitted. Dead enemies cannot become allies. Exactly. Remember this. The warrior who never fights is superior to the warrior who always wins. Because the warrior who never fights has created a world where fighting is unnecessary. The class ended and students dispersed. Dao joined Hana and Hyan, and together they walked to the memorial park that had been built on the site of the old Council military headquarters. The park honored all who had died in the war. Human and alien names were carved into black stone walls. No distinction was made between sides. The dead were the dead, regardless of which flag they had served. Captain Mina was there, as she often was. She stood before the wall that listed the crew of the original Indomitable, the ship she had sacrificed at New Bizan. Her hand touched names of people she had commanded, people who had trusted her to lead them into battle. Do you regret it? Hannah asked quietly. Mina did not turn around. Regret sacrificing my ship? No. We saved New Bizan. 12 million people are alive because of what we did. But I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the Council would not listen to reason. I regret every name on this wall. As do we all, Hyan said. But we honor them by building something worthy of their sacrifice. The Commonwealth is not perfect, but it is better than what came before. They left Mina to her vigil and continued walking. The city was preparing for a festival, a celebration marking 2 years of peace. Banners in hundreds of languages decorated the streets. Music from different cultures blended into a strange but harmonious symphony. Lieutenant Yuan, now a captain, flew overhead in a modified fighter. It was not a military craft anymore. He had converted it into a racing ship and competed in the Commonwealth Games, where species tested their skills in friendly competition rather than war. His squadron was known throughout the galaxy, not for combat victories, but for aerial acrobatics that defied physics. He seems happy, Hana observed. He is doing what he loves without having to kill anyone, Hyan replied. That is the definition of a good peace. When warriors can become athletes. When weapons can become tools. When the energy we spent destroying each other can be redirected to building together. They reached the Commonwealth headquarters, where Hana had an evening meeting with representatives from 3 new applicant species. Before entering, she turned to Hyan. Do you think it will last? The peace we built? Hyan considered the question seriously. Nothing lasts forever. Eventually, there will be new conflicts. New species who do not understand our history. New leaders who think they can do better through force than through cooperation. But we have changed the galactic culture. We have shown that there is an alternative to empire. That will not be forgotten easily. And if someone does forget, If another species rises and tries to conquer as the Council did, then we will do what we did before. We will warn them. We will give them every chance to choose peace. And if they refuse, we will demonstrate why humanity should never be underestimated. Hyan smiled. But we will do it while remembering that our goal is not conquest. Our goal is creating a galaxy where warning someone is enough, where reputation replaces the need for repeated demonstration. The meeting that evening was typical of the new Commonwealth. 3 species seeking membership presented their cases. One was advanced technologically, but inexperienced politically. One was primitive by galactic standards, but rich in resources. One was a collective consciousness that barely understood the concept of individual rights. Hannah listened to each presentation carefully. Then she explained what Commonwealth membership required. Not military strength, not technological advancement, not economic power, but commitment to principles, mutual defense, equality among members, peaceful resolution of disputes, protection of individual rights. We do not require you to be perfect, Hannah said. We require you to be willing to improve. The Commonwealth is not a club for the advanced. It is a partnership for those who want to build something better than what existed before. If you can commit to that, you are welcome regardless of your current capabilities. All 3 species accepted. The Commonwealth grew by 3 more members. 3 more cultures added to the mix. 3 more perspectives that would shape the future. Late that night, after all the meetings and ceremonies and negotiations, Hannah stood alone on a balcony overlooking Veloria Prime. Lights from 1,000 different buildings illuminated the sky. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went from the orbital platforms. The city that had once been the heart of an empire was now the heart of something better. She thought about the day she had stood in the council chamber and delivered Earth's warning, the laughter that had greeted her words, the arrogance that had dismissed humanity as irrelevant. How different things were now, her communicator chimed. A message from Earth. It was brief, just 3 words from humanity's current president. Well done, Ambassador. Hannah smiled. Not Ambassador anymore. Chancellor, but the title mattered less than the achievement. They had done it. They had turned enemies into allies. They had built peace from the ashes of war. They had proven that humanity's strength was not just in their weapons, but in their willingness to extend hands to former enemies. Tomorrow, there would be more meetings, more challenges, more species to integrate into the Commonwealth, more problems that required solutions. But tonight, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. They had laughed at Earth's warning. They had learned, painfully and at great cost, why that laughter was a mistake. And now, the galaxy was better for it. Not perfect, not utopian, but better. And better was enough dot in the distance. A ship departed for Earth, carrying students and diplomats and traders. Another ship arrived from the Galactic Rim, bringing representatives of a species that had just discovered faster-than-light travel. They would be welcomed. They would be offered membership. They would be given the chance Earth had asked for 2 years ago. And if they asked why humanity was so generous, they would be told the story of warnings ignored and consequences delivered. The story of a species that proved primitive did not mean weak. The story of how the galaxy learned that the hardest way possible, that when someone warns you of their strength, you should listen. Because that warning is not a threat. It is an opportunity. The last chance to avoid discovering firsthand just how serious they were. The galaxy had learned. And it would not forget. Not for a very long time.